My name is Taslim Ahmed Iya. I'm running for member House of Representatives in Adamawa State at the Jada Ganye Mayo Balua Tongo constituency. The reason why we're making these videos is to try to inform the general public, that is Nigerians as a whole, and then to more specifically communicate with my own constituents who I'm hoping are going to vote for me. We want to inform them about why it is I am running, who we are, that is the people, my team, and what we are trying to achieve, how we expect to achieve those objectives. Of course, our long-term goal really, the reason why I decided to run, why everybody who has joined me has decided to join me, and there have been a lot of them, and it is because of them I'm able to come out and speak so confidently. The reason why is because we want to bring about a safe society, a fair society, meaning one with justice and equality for all, and a prosperous society, meaning we want to have jobs. You know, the youth, we want to have jobs, we want to have our businesses run well. Basically, we want more than just survive. We want more than just have 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. We want to make sure that we can walk out at night, go wherever it is we want to go to. Those of us that like to go out and have fun or whatever it is we may want to do. Those of us that simply want to get back to our families at night after working for a long day, you know? And this is what we're really fighting for. This is what we're striving to achieve. This is my friend, Chief, it's Noretin. And he's going to be asking me a few questions. And I'm going to try my very best to answer them. He hasn't told me anything about what he's going to be asking for now. No, but I think this is going to be enlightening. Okay, thank you very much. Jay.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much, bro.
Thank you, Jay.
I'm really glad to be here. First of all, I have like a few questions to ask you regarding your political ambition. I know earlier last week you sent me your manifesto, and I've actually gone through it, and I have some few points that I would like to ask. First of all, how do you intend to do this? Which is, okay, I know, like if you want to maybe run a campaign, you must be financially buoyant, you must have enough cash to do this. So how do you intend to raise your cash for the campaign?
Very good question. I'm trying, I guess my objective, you see, you're absolutely right, we need a lot of money to win a campaign, to run a campaign. The constitution says that a member of House of Representatives is not to spend more than 70 million naira in his campaign. That is the campaign limit. Above 70 million, yes, no more than 70 million. Above 70 million is a crime. For the presidency, funny enough, it's $1 billion. But I'm sure they spend $1 billion in the primaries, if not much more than $1 billion. So people don't really follow these campaign laws. I mean, which is a, how do I say, sign of the problem that it's in facing Nigeria, you know. But I intend to fund my campaign primarily through donations. Donations from the public, the general public, that is people who believe in what we're trying to achieve, who read my manifesto or listen to me and decide that what I'm trying to do is worth doing, and believe that I may have the conviction to actually carry out those policies, those plans, in the short term within the MLs of House of Reps, and the long term as we build our own party. Second, of course, my family and my friends. Okay. Basically, well-wishers, people who have the ability, everything from 1,000 naira or even 500 naira recharge cards for our campaign as campaign contributions, to people who can afford to give us 10,000 naira, people who can afford to give us monthly or weekly sums of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. We really are receiving funds from the general public, from anybody who is willing to share. Now, of course, so far, as I can see, I think our funding is going to come from my friends. A lot of them have decided to join my campaign. My family, that is including my extended family. Fortunately for me, I have a very large, very extended family. I think my grandfather has over 40 kids, you know.
It's good Nigerian, I guess.
Yes, again, when I say these things, it reminds me a lot. When I'm talking, it reminds me a lot of the challenges that, you know, face this country of ours. And then there's, of course, people who don't know me. but believe we can achieve these things they're trying to do. I don't want to get funding from any such godfathers, you know, because the way that a person loses his independence is when he decides to accept money from so-called godfathers. Because a godfather assists you, yes, and then you are indebted to them, and then you then have to perform as they want you to perform. You have to do what they want to do. You have to dance to their tune. Now, if my campaign is funded by the general public, who do I owe? General public. I owe the general public, and so my responsibility is to them. And this is the main reason why I decided to run this kind of campaign. You know, I think that answers.
So, Taslim, is it that you're going to open a personal account where you send your account number to the general public and then they have to send money to the account? Or how do you intend to set up this account that people can actually pay money? Well, for instance, now, maybe your friend wants to donate, so how do I do this?
So, and I love that you asked this question because I actually hadn't thought about it. So what we're planning to do, is, I guess now I'm speaking to everybody out there. We are going to post our account details, my account details, Taslim Ahmed Iya, probably my Zenith Bank. I mean, I remember when, I was inspired by Davido when he posted his account details online. And then on his birthday, and a lot of people actually contributed just by having his account details. And that is a very easy way, I think, to raise money. And I think this is also a very worthwhile cause. Of course, I was also very impressed by the fact that he decided to give all of that money away. That's not what we're trying to do here anyways. We are going to use all of that money, all of that campaign money to, I guess, basically to go out and win that election. Because if we don't win the election, we cannot do anything at all. So how do we intend to spend that money? I know it's not a question you asked, but I think it's quite important for people to understand. If somebody is going to give you his money, he wants to know what you are going to do with it. We have a two-pronged approach to this election. Number one is informing the people, the voters, exactly what it is we are trying to achieve. So we are going to first of all highlight the problems to them. What are the problems they are facing? Why are they facing those problems? What are our solutions to those problems? How do we intend to actually fix those problems when we come into power? It costs money to make posters, to make banners, to be on radio, to be on TV, to advertise on newspapers, whatever it is we may do, all of these things are going to cost money. Our second approach is we want to create something called community centers. Our community centers are going to exist at least in all of our constituencies and probably multiple in each local government. The objective of these these community centers is to actually try to do for those people what the government has been unable to do for them. How do we intend to do this? Well, the issues facing my constituents, for example, is lack of access to water, lack of jobs. These are the two major issues facing them that they worry about. A third major issue facing them that I believe that they worry about less, but which has even more of an effect on their lives, is the lack of access to good education. So we are going to spend this money on these three things. One, from our community centers, we are going to provide water to those communities where they lack it, so that they understand what the government is supposed to do for them and what we are going to do for them if elected into power, which we actually are going to do, by the way. Second, in terms of the jobs, we want to provide them with training so that they have the ability to actually engage in different business activities. I remember I was in Jeddah, my hometown, a few weeks ago, and my cousin was telling me about how he had graduated, he finished from Polytechnic, and he didn't actually know what to do, so he was going to go out and find a way to learn tailoring so that he could start sewing clothes, because he always had a passion for that. I asked him, did he really have a passion for that? He said, no, not really. I mean, he just liked it when he was a child, but now he's just doing it because he needs something to earn a living. And this is exactly what we need to do. We need to give people the ability to do, to practice. And I think this shows the image of many of those people who finish school, or they haven't gone to school, but they need to do something. So from these community centers, we are going to train them en masse, in large numbers, to learn many different kinds of activities, everything from soap making to tailoring, barbing, whatever kind of skill they may learn that will enable them to run businesses. We'll teach them how to operate their business, how to run their business in a basic way. And then for the best people, depending on the funding we get, we are going to fund them and ensure that they can go out and actually start doing those things. Then we are still going to support the existing businessmen and traders and farmers. For the businessmen, we want some associations that will give them access to credit through our community centers, if possible. And then as they repay, they get access to more so that they can expand their businesses and therefore employ more people. We will teach them how to manage a business, how to get access to credit from the banks, how to use insurance to prevent damages, to prevent their livelihoods from being destroyed just from a single accident or from a single trauma. For the farmers, we'll give them access to better farming methods. There are 4 things you need as a farmer to achieve higher yield. I'll give you an example. Well, those 4 things. 1, you need better seeds. You need irrigation facilities. You need access to mechanized equipment. And then you need access to fertilizer. If you have these things, your yield can improve materially. Just a small example. In Nigeria, a hectare of land, if you decide to plant tomato, is going to give you about 5,000 kilograms of tomato from 1 hectare. 5,000 kilograms. In Netherlands, with the same hectare, if you farm, you are going to get not 5,000 kilograms, but 500,000 kilograms. That's 100 times difference that comes only from engaging in just doing those 4 things well. Having irrigation facilities, better seeds, fertilizer, and mechanized farming equipment. 1, to the issues at hand. 2, to our own association and how we then intend to fix Nigeria. Not just like short term, but in the long term as well, you know? Because this thing cannot be done by one person. No matter how influential, if it could be done by one person, Dangote would have fixed this country. Dangote is the richest man in Africa. But has the potential to be one of the richest men in the world, you know? If he could not, with all of his good deeds he has done, if he could not even make any impact, it tells you that one man cannot fix this country. You know what I mean, right? Which means a lot of people that have decided to dedicate themselves and their lives. This is what we're doing now, to try to get people aware of the issues, aware of our existence, our solutions to the problem so that they can join us. And let's try to bring that into reality. So the first step for me is winning this election, becoming a member of the House of Representatives. From within the House, I want to try to pass legislation to influence the executive in policy creation. That is the policy that they are going to create, and then how they are going to implement those policies. You know, in the areas of inflation, the economy, and security, right? Predominantly, of course, education matters a lot to me as well. And yeah, basically that's it, you know. Then this next step will be to get our other members of our association into places of power as well. Let them become members of the House. Let them become senators. Let them become members of the executive, governors, you know, so that they too, from within their position of power, we can then make those decisions, we can make those changes together. You know what I mean, right? We come together and then we decide together. This is what we need to do to get Nigeria working. And then together, we'll actually take those actions. We cannot allow this, I'm very sorry to say, old men from 1960, 1950, to be deciding our futures. They've shown us what they can do. And what they can do is absolutely terrible. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily we can do better. But even if we do nothing, it's better than everything they've done. Even if we get into power and do absolutely nothing, it is better than all the things they've been doing all these years. Absolutely. I think anybody would agree. It is the actions they've taken that have caused Naira to fall. Over the last, since 2015, from 170 to 750. 750. The bag of rice from 75 to 35,000. I think it was 40,000 last time we went to go and buy. In less than 6 years, you know? So, if the only thing we can manage over the next 40 years is to keep the price in one place, I think we've done a much better job than this people can ever do. And we're not even trying to do that. We're not trying to stay in one place. We're trying to push ourselves forward. You know? Anyways, I think that's all I have to say about that. Conditions that Netherlands will ever have. Everything about us is favorable for agriculture, and yet we don't even make that effort to make any of these things, and we want to do those things. And of course, there are many other plans which we have, and I think we'll share that in series. We'll make speeches about different areas so that, because it will not be possible for us to, within a single session or speech, talk about every single thing that we intend to do. I don't know. I know I answered much more than your question.
Honestly, well, Taslim, you've not actually answered my question, and then I'm going to like repeat the question again. Okay, I've actually gone through the manifesto, and then you've highlighted so many challenges that is actually facing the country. So my question is, okay, how do you intend to how do you intend to implement these policies, that will actually be to the benefit of Nigerians?
So, in the beginning, I wouldn't have a lot of power as an individual, as one person, to make a lot of changes. But some of the things I will and I plan to do in the beginning, that is in the short term, is regarding trying to fix those issues I've highlighted. Insecurity, the economy, which is jobs, law and order, and education. I have more ability to work on law and order. In terms of insecurity, I plan to propose bills in members of House of Representatives, and then through my interaction with the executive to try to increase the size of the police force, at least double it from the current 250,000 to at least 500,000 people to meet the world standards. Even that 500,000 is still below the UN standard, but there's something, at least we need a lot more security agents on ground. One of the ways I plan to increase that number is to propose a bill to merge the police force with the civil defense. The civil defense has a budget of about 110 billion naira compared to the police forces about 500 billion. You have together a cohesive, if you put them together and sacrifice the role of the civil defense and simply enlarge the role of the police, you can have more people on ground immediately without having to spend that extra 110 billion naira from our budget. That's our budget, our total budget of about 16 trillion naira, I believe. And you have this ability to, from that 110, our revenues are far less than the 16 trillion. I don't think we made up to 8 trillion last year in revenue. So 110 billion naira is actually a lot of money for Nigeria, which we managed to immediately increase the size of the police, give them the equipment of the civil defense, the facilities, and then the manpower. Then, of course, through increased recruitment, right? This is something that is well within the powers of the House of Representatives member to try to forward through our House of Representatives, right? Of course, I have other plans I intend to try to pass through the form of bills and through the form of soft influence. The increase in the wage of the police, for example, that is something also within the power, my power as a member of the representatives. We cannot give a man a gun and then pay him a wage that cannot even allow him to feed himself. He's going to take action into his own hands and try to feed himself by force. He cannot ask a man to protect you when he's hungry. Why should he protect you? If he loses his life, his family are in danger. He knows the government won't take care of him because they have seen what happened to the family of his colleagues when they died. So the improved salaries and welfare of these security forces, I'm going to move it forward seriously. Now, again, I think I've mentioned a lot of these things in my manifesto and in my restructuring plan. And anyone who is interested seriously in my policies on security should read that. It's on my website, taslimahmediya.com.
I'll actually going to cut here. Okay, you as an individual, you can't, for instance, now if you've been elected into office as a House of Rep member, and then you come up with these policies. So I don't know if your other members do not actually share the same view. How do you intend to do this? Because most times you need the majority for them to actually move this bill forward. So how do you intend to achieve this?
Every bill starts with one person. Every single bill that was ever passed in history. The House of Representatives is there to represent the people. If I, as a member of the House, should introduce a bill, of course I'm going to share it along with, again, the other members of the House. Now, they are also very reasonable men who have been elected by their own populace. Some, of course, much more reasonable than others. They are going to listen to the proposals, and we are going to try to understand what the economic impact will be, because we can't simply increase people's salary up and down. The government must be able to pay for it. We are going to sit down and discuss how to fund those things. I'll give you an example. We are spending 500 billion naira per annum on social security through things like through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. In fact, if you include other direct contributions, it rises to 900 billion naira on social programs. That's the single largest item in the budget. The only thing more than that is security. which is only about 100 billion more. As securities, the police, the army, the navy, the air force, and all other paramilitary organizations, excluding the police. Can you imagine that? And we are spending the same thing on humanitarian efforts, which is being wasted. They supposedly spent 45 billion naira in 2020 on logistics. That's more than the entire military spends on logistics. So of course you can tell there's a lot of waste going on there. So we can make changes like, look, if I'm proposing a bill, I'm going to say to them, this is what I'm proposing, my people. The people are going to be seeing this, and they will also decide if what I'm proposing is good. If the House, my members of the House, believe that it is a good policy, they will pass it. If they don't believe it's a good policy, but the general public feels it's a good policy, they can, through their role as members of the public, influence their members of the House, because again, they represent them to support that bill. That is why we live in a democracy, because your argument must pass. At least you must be able to move the general public, and then you must be able to move your colleagues. No matter you are in the PDP or APC, no matter how many party members you have, you must be able to convince them that what you're proposing makes sense for them. Okay? You know?
Can actually go back to
going back to education.
Yeah.
In terms of education, I want universal basic education. Okay? That already exists to some extent, but people are still paying some certain fees,
which is very little.
We are going to criminalize that. They should not pay any fees at all. Otherwise, it will discourage the lower income, because we need to reduce the rate of that poverty in this country. And the way to do it is to increase basic literacy in the villages, in the rural areas, in the hometowns. They are our people. It is they who become, go into acts of insecurity due to desperation, due to lack of education, due to a lack of knowledge of what is better. Right? Our brothers and sisters, our children, we need to sit down and ensure that they become educated. Only this way can we build a better society for the future. You know? Why? If they have education again, they can get jobs. Right? They know how to start their own business. They know how to engage in technical activities, repairs, vocational education. Which is bringing my second point. I want to move education away from simply the normal way to oppose bills that will stop education simply being everybody go to university. So we have so many unemployed graduates. We'll try to move the education system to a stream system where the people that are best suited for vocational studies, which is to learn vocational skills, technical skills, handwork, we'll teach them. Okay. After secondary school, if you choose to do that, you move there. Even after primary school, if you choose to do that, you can move directly to that area. So you don't end up wasting all these years learning skills and learning things that are not going to be useful for you. When you are going to come and finish, then you start looking for how to go to university. You go and spend 4 years in university. If there's ASU strike, you spend 9 years in university. And then you come out and become an influencer. We need to change how education works. We are losing education of the 1950s, 1960s. The world is different today. We need more people that are able to start their own businesses, more people that are trained in vocational skills, people to choose. Let us bring dignity to the normal workman's life. There is no indignity in farming. There is no indignity in being a plumber. People earn a lot of money doing these tasks in other countries. There is no indignity in it, and we must remind our people of that. We must encourage it through the educational system. So I want to propose bills that will make those changes. Again, I speak a lot about those in my manifesto.
People can actually go to your website and...
Yes, you can actually... Of course, I want to say so much about education, and I will later. We have the economy. Turn on the economy. I think that's one of the most important things. Immediately, right now, we need to make sure we start getting people jobs. How do we do that? That is the most difficult. It is such a long part to discuss, you know. I spent most of my time, most of my research, most of my planning has been on the economy, because it matters more than anything. Why? If we don't have money, we cannot pay the security agents. If we don't have jobs, those people will go into insecurity, and then we still have to hire more police. If we don't have jobs, we cannot. If we don't have money in the country, we cannot pay for that free university education. We cannot pay the civil service. That economy is just the most important thing. Getting people jobs, getting the economy working better, getting businesses to work better. You know, that is just, it must be the priority. Getting inflation to become lower. You cannot be having prices of things double every year. It just can't work. I'm sorry, I guess I'm being a bit too passionate, you know? It cannot work. So what do we do? How do we, what are the plans that I have in this area? For one thing, I want to propose an economic development board, which is basically an agency. People will be shouting now, another agency. Yes, it's an agency, in fact, the kind of super agency that will reside within the office, either of the House of Representatives, or that is controlled through a committee, or by the president. Well, a partnership of both. Now, what this agency is supposed, this economic development board is supposed to do is to try to promote the creation of new industries. Because we need to industrialize this country quickly. What does industrialization mean? It means to build up very quickly the economy. So how do we intend to do this? Of course, everybody talks about agriculture. Yes, agriculture is important. So is manufacturing. So is the services industry. How do we build that up? We need to promote, we need to get more foreign investors to come in, bring in their capital and their technical knowledge to come and invest in Nigeria, so that we can generate more jobs. Because what we need more, first of all, now we need to create those jobs, a lot of those jobs. I'll give you an example. In Pakistan, the automobile industry generates 3.5 million jobs. 3.5 million is a lot. And the indigenous manufacturers are very few. It's Toyota, Hyundai, they are the ones that are in Pakistan generating those jobs. The government simply came up with a policy that says that made it very difficult to import cars. And then they now came up with a policy that encouraged those companies to come to Pakistan.
They set up their company.
Yes, low tax rates, they made the place safe, they gave them, basically they made it so beneficial to them to come and set up there. And in that way, they convinced them. So instead of importing Toyota cars and Hyundai, they started making. So one, they were saving foreign exchange revenue. By saving that, their currency became more stable. Two, they generated 3.5 million jobs. 3.5 million. That is amazing, you know. And I think we can do a lot more than that through these kinds of policies. This is something that an economic development board can promote. There are many instances of many other industries which we could do that. And again, I plan to discuss all of those things in great detail. They are also discussed in detail in my manifesto, but in even greater detail in my restructuring plan. I think finally, again, I've taken too much time on this question, has to be with law and order. It is the duty of the legislative to promulgate or create the laws, the judiciary to actually uphold it, right? And the executive to police and ensure that the laws are being followed. This is how our system works. So it starts with us at the legislative. We are going to make sure that the punishment for crimes, including stealing and corruption, becomes so severe that nobody dares to engage in those crimes. In the case of banditry and kidnapping, we are going to go far beyond that. I heard they passed a bill recently that says if you kidnap somebody, if you kill the person that you kidnapped, then the punishment is death penalty. That doesn't go far enough. If you engage in banditry or kidnapping, the punishment should be death immediately, the death penalty immediately. We don't want to have this kind of society. If you engage in terrorism activities, the punishment should be death immediately. We do not want to have these kinds of activities being carried out by people. You come and put them on bail. For what? Somebody killed another person, you are locking them up so that they'll come and be rescued again from Kuje prison and then go back and continue doing it again. Now, having known how you caught them before, now they have more knowledge on how to stop you from catching them. Why? We have to ensure that we do to them what they are doing to us. And we must make the law speedy enough that if somebody is caught in these areas, they're able to be executed quickly, swiftly. You do that. A lot of countries have created these kind of laws at different times in their history. You can make it so that the system for punishing these people is faster. The same we will do for government corruption. Now, this requires much more than just a legislation in the House of Representatives. This requires executive support of the EFCC, the anti-corruption agencies, the executive, which is not something that I can guarantee or promise that I can create, to be honest. But it's something that over the years, as a party, as an association, we can build, can actually make this happen. punishment for crime, severe punishment for certain crimes, specifically the crimes that are currently plaguing us, which is government corruption and banditry, kidnapping, terrorism, because it's the same thing to me. You know? And this is how I intend to start making those changes. I know I took too much time to answer these questions, but I think it was very important for me to state.
Yeah, honestly, I feel it's actually important, and I think it's things that you have.